Hi, welcome to the Joyful House and welcome to Craft Table Talks. My name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations, and I'm glad you're here. Week after week, we are going to learn and explore new things in the craft of crocheting and knitting. I encourage you to ask questions or suggest topics that you would like to discuss or research further. Our time here around the craft table, it is for everyone, beginners and seasoned crafters. I am dedicating this time around the craft table to my sister Missy, who let me know that she was interested in learning how to crochet and knit. So I thank her for inspiring me to share what I can and bring some yarny inspiration and joy to you and all those who want to learn and refresh. So if you're ready, come join me for today's Craft Table Talks. Hello, welcome to the Joyful House and welcome to today's Craft Table Talks. My name is Cynthia and I will be your host for today. As we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at our table topic for today. So as you can see, our table topic for today is, what do I need to know about yarn? Well, before we answer all of that and jump into talking about today's topics around the craft table, let's first take a look at the outline of all the things we will be discussing today. So as you can see on the outline there, we are going to first our table topic, which is, what do I need to know about yarn? 2, what is yarn? Number 3, key sources of yarn. And then we're going to look at the different breakdowns of that, from animal fibers to plant fibers to synthetic fiber and blended yarn. Number 4, the process of making yarn. Number 5, where was yarn invented? Number 6, the yarn weight categories. Number 7, how does yarn come packaged to a consumer? 8, reading yarn labels. Number 9, yarn selection for beginners. And number 10, what does halo, roving, and pilling mean? All right, well, if you are ready, let's go ahead and get started with today's Craft Table Talks. And we're going to jump right into, what is yarn? Yarn comes from natural fibers, whether from animals or plants or synthetic materials. They are cleaned, carded, and spun into strands. The key sources include sheep, which is wool, plants like cotton and linen and hemp, and then synthetic materials like acrylic and polyester, which are derived from petroleum. It is then often dyed and spun into balls for crafting. All right, now we're going to take a look at our third topic, key sources of yarn. All right, and again, these are going to fall under animal fibers, plant fibers, synthetic fibers, and then we're going to look at other sources and blended yarns. First, we have animal fibers. And this is like a protein. It is the wool, and it is wool, and it is the most common and harvested from sheep. Other sources include goats, which is where you get your cashmere and your mohair from, rabbits, which is where you get your angora from, alpacas, camels, and then silk from insect larvae. Then you have your plant fibers, cellulose. And this is your cotton is the primary plant fiber that is used. Other sources include linen, flax, hemp, and bamboo. And then you have your synthetic fibers. These are man-made, and they're created from chemicals, mostly petroleum-based. And they include acrylic, polyester, nylon, and rayon. And then we have other sources. Sometimes fibers are made from unique materials like seaweed extract or recycled materials. And that was a new fact for me. I found that to be very, very interesting. All right. Now, we're going to break these down. So let's start with our animal fibers. Animal fibers are mostly known for their warmth and their softness. And the first one we're going to take a look at is wool. Now, I went and searched all of my yarn, and I know you can see a little bit back here, so I have some for demonstration, show and tell, but I'm also going to be including pictures in today's lesson as well. I did not have any wool. All the wool I had, I've either used or given away. But it's the most popular, durable, and warm fiber that comes from a sheep. Then you have merino. Merino is an exceptionally soft and fine, lightweight wool. And where does it come from? Well, nowadays, mostly merino fibers come from sheep, and they can be found all over the globe. But the biggest country, our wool producing country and regions, are South America, New Zealand, and South Africa. However, I learned a very interesting fact. The country that produces the most merino wool is Australia. Merino sheep thrive in adverse weather, and the harsh Australian climate is particularly good for their development. And then it says it's worth noting that most merino wool comes from Australia, but it's actually most of the time exported as a raw fleece, and it goes to other countries where it's actually spun into the yarn itself. So I thought that was a very interesting fact. This high quality yarn, it reaches the shops after it's been spun into yarn, where we get to enjoy it. Now, wool yarn is not just used for knitting and crocheting. Its fabulous qualities mean it's often turned into sporting garments for hikers and trail runners. Now, if you hold a ball of merino yarn in one hand and a ball of just regular wool in the other, you are going to be sure to feel a difference, because the merino wool is going to be a lot softer and a lot more plush, and it's not going to be as itchy and scratchy as the regular wool. And the merino wool is a lot easier to handle up against the sensitivity of skin. All right. Also, an interesting fact about merino wool is that the fiber in the wool is a lot longer, which means that there's a lot less peeling in it. And we're going to discuss the very last thing today, what is peeling. So hold that thought and hold those questions if you have them. Now let's move on from wool to our fleece types of yarn. Fleece includes mohair, angora, and cashmere. Cashmere is an expensive yarn, but it is highly luxurious, and it is very, very soft, and it comes from the warm undercoat of goats. And then we have our alpaca yarn. Now, alpaca yarn is a very soft, durable, hyperallergenic yarn that is excellent for draping, and we'll talk about draping on another Craft Table Talks on another day. Then we have your mohair yarn. It's a very thick yarn that comes from an Angora goat, and it has a fuzzy appearance, but it is fluffy, it's durable, and it has a resilient hair from the goat. All right, now let's talk about Angora. Angora is a very, very soft, fluffy yarn that comes from Angora rabbits, and it also has a fuzzy appearance as well. And then silk is a strong, shiny protein fiber with a smooth texture, and as we discussed already, it comes from the larvae of insects. Now we're going to move on to our plant fibers. And the first one is cotton. Cotton, this is some cotton yarn here, as well as the picture you see on the screen. And as you can see, it's a very thick strand, and it's very strong and durable. It's also very absorbent. It's very good to use around things where it might get wet. It's really great for dishcloths and dish towels to absorb that water. It's also ideal for summer garments as well. And then you have linen. I do not have any linen yarn to share with you, but I do have a picture on the screen. And it is highly breathable, and it is some strong, strong stuff. And it is also perfect for summer garments. And then we have bamboo. Bamboo is soft and eco-friendly, and it has a natural sheen to it. As well as the picture on the screen, this is some yarn that it has bamboo in it, as well as cotton. So this is 50% bamboo and 50% cotton. And this is what the strand looks like. It's very, very soft. You can see it's squishy, but you can also see that pretty sheen in it. And that shimmer is because of the bamboo in it. And then we have hemp. It's similar to linen, and it's known for its high durability. Now, this is not hemp. This is actually what they would call macrame, but it is very similar to hemp. It's more like a cord than it is yarn. And you can see the ridges in it that give it that cord-like design. Now we're going to move on to our synthetic fibers. These are our man-made fibers, and they are durable, and they're also inexpensive. Your animal and your plant fibers, they are a little bit more on the expensive end, but they are affordable. More the plant than the animal. Animal fiber yarns are the most expensive yarns that are on the market today. All right. Next, our first, I should say, is acrylic. And this is acrylic yarn here, and I have a picture on the screen for you as well. And I wanted you to show you the difference. These are both acrylic yarns, but depending on where they're made in the company, they can look a little bit different. So there's this one, and you can see it's got a tighter spun to it. So it's real thick, real durable. And this one, same, but it's got a little bit softer plush look and feel to it. Look at the difference when I do what we call a squish test. See how squishy and puffy that is? Now watch this with this one. Not as much squish, not as much give, but yet they're both acrylic yarns, 100% acrylic. And there, 100% acrylic, but yet there is a difference. Okay. Next is polyester. It is strong and wrinkle resistant, and it's often a blended yarn, which means that it's blended with an acrylic yarn. So it's like a polyester and acrylic blend. It is made from a synthetic polymer that is called polyethylene terephthalate, otherwise known as PET, and that's how we're going to refer to it going forward, because that's a mouthful. This polymer is derived from petroleum, making polyester a type of thermoplastic polymer. PET is processed and extruded into long filaments, which are then twisted together to form polyester threads. The composition of polyester threads give them several desirable characteristics, including a high level of strength and resistance to stretching and shrinkage, and it maintains its color very well. Now I had somewhere on here on my table, yes, this is acrylic and a polyester blend, and you can see there's no give hardly in this at all. It's a very thick yarn. It's a little on the rough side. It's not a very soft yarn. And then this one also has what's called a little metallic running through it. And I will talk to you a little bit more about this metallic going through it in a little bit when we get to like what we call our novelty yarns. All right. Moving on is nylon. Nylon is exceptionally strong and elastic. And then you have rayon and viscose. It's man-made from cellulose, and cellulose just basically means that it has a structural component of plant cell walls, which basically make it sustainable and biodegradable. And this comes a lot in your cotton yarns, but this cellulose is material that is derived from wood pulp, it's derived from cotton, and it's also derived from other plant sources, like the seaweed that we talked about earlier. All right, now let's look at our specialty in our blended yarns. Blended just simply means what I've already shared with you. When you have yarn that has two or more yarn fibers blended together. For example, in this one, it was the cotton and the bamboo. This one was acrylic and the polyester. This one, although you can't see it because it kind of blends in very well, this is actually 70% polyamide, 21% acrylic, and 9% wool, and it has a metallic blend in it. That's that shiny part that you see. So this one has 3 different fiber components in it to make up this blend of wool, this blend of yarn. All right. Then we have chenille yarn, and I wish I had some in person to show you, but I do not. I do have a picture on the screen for you. This is a soft, fluffy, velvety type yarn, and that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a velvet-like texture to it and feels like it. Then we have what is called boucle. I do not have any boucle yarn, and I've put the name of that up on the screen for you to see, because it's pronounced boucle, but as you can see, it is spelled B-O-U-C-L-E. And this features small loops that create a texture bumpy surface. I think that the closest thing I have to a boucle might even be something like this. See how that creates? But this does fall under a novelty yarn. Boucle is where this would be kind of more like a boucle. This is called a homespun yarn. But see how it creates like this bumpy surface? Then we have what is called slub yarn. Slub yarn is where it is intentionally thick and thin in places. And then finally you've got your novelty yarns. These include metallic. This is considered metallic. This has metallic in it. See the little shimmering running through it? Again, this one that I've already shown you. But also, metallic yarn can have fringe. It can have tape yarns that are designed to give it a visual appeal. These are novelty yarns. See how different that is? That's a novelty yarn. This is the same type, but just a different color. Same thing with this one. You can definitely see the difference with all those different colors. All right, this one that I showed you a minute ago, it's considered a novelty yarn. And just to give you an idea, let's see what it says. This is 52% acrylic and 34% Lana wool and 14% polyamide. All right. This is a novelty yarn. This is not the eyelash yarn, but if you've ever heard of eyelash yarn, that's a novelty yarn. See how fluffy it is? It's got a very thin strand of string running through the center of it. Let me see if I can hold that up for you to see. Yes, you can see that. But if you're not careful, these little fibers will pull out very easily. So that's kind of a sensitive yarn. Here is more like the other one I was showing you, but instead of having like a trellis, this one has the string and then it has fluff on it. And both of these are the same. So those are all novelty yarns. It's also considered a novelty yarn, and you can see how it has like the string and then it has these little puff balls that'll appear every so many stitches. All right, so those are all what you would consider a novelty yarn. And then these are also considered a novelty yarn. It's called scrubby yarn, and it comes in two different styles. You can get it in this style here, and this is what it looks like. And then you can get it like this. And it works up just like any other yarn, cotton yarn. But these are considered synthetic to make scrubbies for doing kitchen dishes, or interweaving in cotton yarn to make dishcloths, so it's got the little scrubby material in it. All right. Now let's talk about the process of making yarn. There are 5 steps to the process of making yarn. First, you have to harvest it. Harvesting is where raw fiber is gathered, whether it's shearing sheep, or alpaca, or goats, or picking cotton. The second part of the process is the cleaning and the scouring. This is where the raw fiber is cleaned of any dirt and grease. And then the third step is called carding. Carding is where fibers are combed to align them. The fourth part is called spinning. Spinning is where fibers are twisted together to create a strong, continuous strand. And then the fifth step is called plying or finishing. And this means where multiple strands are often twisted together for strength, and then they are dyed to give us all of our various colors. All right, where was yarn invented? Some attribute India as the birthplace of where yarn was invented, but there are some that dispute that the rightful place of origin is actually Egypt. So we don't really 100% know, but we do know that in the early stages, it was being used in India and in Egypt, and they were made to use string skirts. And some of those oldest string skirts are dated back as artifacts from over 20,000 years ago. And then I thought I'd throw in just a really interesting fact, and it is, what is the oldest yarn brand? Of all the yarn brands we have out there, and we'll talk about yarn brands on another Craft Table Talks down the road. But of all the yarn brands, the oldest one is Lion Brand. Lion Brand has been on the market since 1878, and that makes it the oldest producer of yarn. I am a big, big fan of Lion Brand. I love Lion Brand yarn. All right. Moving on, we are going to talk about the different yarn weight categories. Yarn weight depends on the level of thickness of the yarn strand fiber. All right. The first thing we're going to talk about is crochet thread. That's a little bit different than your yarn. Crochet thread is very thin and very, very fine. It is very similar to your sewing thread, and then it, just like yarn, can increase in weight and depth to give you a little bit thicker thread. This is considered a crochet thread. This is a number 10, and you can see it is still a very, very thin strand, but you can tell it's thicker than your sewing thread. And the thing about crochet thread that is different from your regular yarn is that with your hook size, the higher the hook size, the larger the crochet hook. But in dealing with thread and the hooks that are used for it, the higher the hook size, the smaller the hook head is. So that is the main difference between hooks for use for yarn and used for crochet thread. Now, this number 10 weight of crochet thread is also what is identified as a lace weight yarn. So let's talk about that. Lace thread, it's a fine lace. It creates a fine lace work, and it is the smallest weight in our yarn weights. And when it is worked up, it is beautiful. A lot of people use it to make doilies, to make any kind of lace item, whether it might be a baby bonnet, a baby bib, or lacing around a baby blanket. It's mostly intended to be more of a decorative type of use. All right, then we move on to what is called a fingering sock weight yarn. And it is lightweight, and it creates lightweight garments. It is one step thicker than what we had on the lace weight yarn. And it's sometimes often referred to as a fingering weight yarn, and that is a terminology that you will hear often. And so that's why I wanted to make sure I included that in today. All right, the difference between the two weights of yarn can sometimes be fuzzy because lace weight yarns are quite versatile, meaning that they're often used in making decorative items, as we've already discussed, as in lace work or doilies, bookmarks, things like that. But lace or fingering weight yarns can also be used to create projects like home decor and other functional items like socks and warm weather garments. Next, we're going to move on to what is called a sport weight yarn or a DK weight yarn. But this one particularly is considered a sport weight yarn, and you can see it also is a very fine, thin yarn. This one is also something we would call variegated, meaning it has lots of different colors in it, and also it's a blended because it's got the metallic running through it as well. So this sport weight yarn is really good for making like lightweight sweaters and baby items. Then we move on to what's called a DK weight. And a DK weight is often also referred to as a light worsted weight yarn. It is usually around like a number 2 to number 3 yarn. These are both number 3s, but I want to show you the difference, and I also have a picture on the screen for you. You can see it's a lot thicker than the other ones that I was showing you. And this one looks like it's really thick, but when you look at the individual strand, it is still a very thin weight yarn. These are really great for working up things like hats and gloves and shawls. I love using the 3-weight yarn a lot because I enjoy making baby items, and I also use it just to make adult wearables as well. But it's a super popular yarn weight for making garments. Then we're going to move on to what is called our worsted Aran yarn. And it is versatile. It's very popular for sweaters and afghans. People use this for all kinds of things. Hats, amigurumi. Amigurumis are made a lot with cotton yarns, but also with your worsted Aran, which is also known as your acrylic blends. The weight of this yarn is what makes it a very popular yarn. It's a lot thicker. You can achieve projects a lot quicker than you can with some of these smaller weight yarns. But because this yarn is thicker than the weights that we previously discussed, then that means that it helps work up your projects a lot quicker. And it also lends nicely to cool weather garments such as sweaters, and also it's good for making blankets and hats and scarves as well, and stuffed animals, as we just talked about, and baby items. So next we move on to what is considered a bulky or chunky weight yarn, and it's usually what's called a number 5, and we're going to talk about those different yarn weight categories in a minute. But you can see that it is a much thicker yarn, and this is great for working up projects really fast, like hats and scarves. It sometimes is also referred to as just a chunky weight yarn, but it's common for a bulky yarn to give you about maybe 3 to 3.5 stitches per inch. This is ideal, like we said already, for things such as scarves and garments and blankets. In fact, a chunky weight yarn will work up a blanket so much faster than your worsted Aran. Your worsted Aran, excuse me. All right. Then we go into what is called super bulky or jumbo yarn. I do not have any of those in my collection either, but I do have pictures on the screen for you. The super bulky, it is great for making blankets and rugs. This works up really fast. You get about 2 to 3 stitches per inch, and you do have to use much bigger hooks for this. Then you've got your jumbo yarn, and this yarn is even larger than any that we've talked about. It clocks maybe 1 to 2 stitches per inch, and the weight of this yarn allows for your project to be just super ultra cushy and plush. And the nice thing about this yarn is sometimes you can even work it without using a crochet hook. You can actually use your fingers. And again, there's a picture of it up on the screen there. All right. Now let's move on and talk about how does yarn come packaged to a consumer. Well, there are 5 different ways that it comes. You have a skein. Some people call it a skein. You have a ball. You have a cake. You have a hank, and you have a cone. Let's look at a skein. This is 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 a skein. What makes it a skein? This is a skein. What makes it a skein is the shape. It's a long oval shape or cylinder bundle, and it's designed to prevent rolling, and it minimizes tangles and it allows for you to either pull your yarn from the center, is what we call a center pull, or you can find it, which you usually have to take the label off, on the outside. Most people prefer to do the center pull because as you pull from the center, it's easier, but you run into sometimes dealing with what is called yarn barf. Yarn guts is where the yarn just literally comes out in a clump, and it's literally like the guts of the yarn just everywhere. But if you've got a tool where you can put it on and pull it, then it can just pull off of that. And I have a tool for that. I call it my yarn stand, and we will go over that on another Craft Table Talks when we go over different types of accessories that you could have for your yarn projects. Next, we want to talk about a ball. This is considered a ball of yarn. This is considered a ball of yarn. And I have oftentimes even heard people consider these little cotton ones a ball of yarn instead of a skein. All right, next is a cake. Oh, and this is also considered a ball of yarn, where it comes like this. All right. This is considered a cake of yarn. This is considered a cake of yarn. It's where it literally comes like a little round cake. And there is a tool that you can use to wind yarn from a skein, from a ball, from a cone, from a hank. It's not as easy from a cone, but anyway, and it's called a yarn ball winder. And we will have a Craft Table Talks on nothing but yarn ball winders one day in the very near future. The next way it comes is in what is called a hank. And this is what a hank looks like. It is where it is a large, loosely twisted loop or ring that usually can be wound into a ball or cake before use. And it's highly recommended because if you don't, it will get all tangled and be a very, very hot mess. But when you take it off and untwist it, then it's kind of like in rings. It's like a ring of yarn. And I really wish I could take that off and show it to you, but it would become a very hot mess. There is a tool called a Swift that you put it on so that you can cake it up into a cake. And again, that is something that we will do when we do the yarn ball winder day. We'll also bring the Swift in as well and show you how to use that. All right, so that is a hank. And then the final way that it comes is a cone. And this is a cone. And it means that it has a cardboard center on the inside. And you can also see it peeking out there. All right. And each of these, as you notice, regardless of what they are, they come with a protective label wrapped around them. But this label is not just to protect them from coming apart. That label has a very vital use. So let's move on to reading yarn labels. All right, the yarn label, or what is often referred to as a ball band, is a gold mine of information. All right, first off, and I have some just empty ball bands or labels here for you. First off, it tells you the name or the type of the yarn. And as you can see, this is a Lion Brand yarn, and it is called Heartland yarn. All right. And then I love here, and even here, it puts established in 1878, which we already discussed earlier as it being the longest brand of yarn on the market. And then down here, it has Lion Brand's website, and it says over 8,000 free patterns on it. But the nice thing about ball bands is it also gives you more information about the yarn. As you can see there, it tells you the ounces of it, the grams of it, the yardage of it. It also tells you what the fiber is. As you can see, it's 100% acrylic. Over here, we're going to discuss this next, and that is how to identify the yarn weight. This one, it has a 4 in it, so that means this is a worsted or rawn acrylic weight yarn. And then right here, it tells you what size needles for knitting and what size hook for crocheting is recommended. And for this one, it recommends a 5.5 millimeter knitting needle or a 6 millimeter crochet hook. And then look at this. You have these symbols across the bottom here. And that tells you whether or not it can be washed, it can be dried. It's the care instructions. And we're going to go over that more in just a moment because I have some pictures for you. And then down here next, it has their address, and then it has all the different places that you can find out about them. They've got Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm not sure what that other one is. Maybe Instagram. And then down here, it tells you the color, or sometimes yarn doesn't have a color, it has a number. But this one has a color, and it says that it is the colorway White Sands. And this one says that the colorway is Petrified Forest. All right, so now let's take a look at first yarn weights and how to identify what weight of yarn a yarn is by the label. So as you can see on the screen, if it's got a 1, it is a super fine fingering baby weight or a crochet size number 10 thread. Okay. All right, if it has a 2, it is a fine sport weight used for light sweaters, baby things, and accessories. Again, a number 3 is your light worsted or DK weight used for sweaters, garments, lightweight scarves. I use it to make a lot of baby clothes and baby blankets. Then you've got your worsted or rawn, which is your number 4, and oftentimes this is what your acrylic yarn is. And then number 5 is bulky and chunky, and number 6 is super bulky and jumbo. And these again are used mostly for heavy blankets, rugs, and sweaters. All right, now let's take a look at a label that I have on the screen. And this lets you know if something can be washed and dried, ironed, or bleached. So if you're looking there at the screen, you can see that this is a medium 4 weight on this band, and it tells you your hook size and your knitting needle size. But then on the very bottom, those are the ones we're going to look at. So as you look at this label, it is very easy to read, and it also actually just tells you what the pictures stand for, which makes it really nice. But most of the times you are only going to get pictures on your labels and ball bands. You will not have it written out. As you can see, it's got the little wash machine with the water waves, and it does not have an X on it, so it tells us that it is machine washable. And oftentimes this is what it looks like. Then you have a triangle. That means you cannot bleach. And this one, it has the same thing because there's an X through it. Then on that one, it has an A, and it says you can use any solvent. That is not normally on a lot of ball bands. So this is kind of an exception, so that makes it really nice. Then next you have an iron, and there's one on this one as well. And as you can see, it's crossed out, and that means you cannot iron this fiber. And then it has a square box with a circle in it, and that stands for your dryer. And because it doesn't have an X on it, it means that you can put this fiber into the dryer. So I'm going to give you another example of a label up on the screen for you to look at. And then after I do that, we're going to take a moment and I'm going to give you a couple little, if you want to call it cheat sheets or charts, things that you can look at to help you in identifying the different yarns. So let's take a look. Now we're going to move on to our topic number 9 on our outline, and it is the yarn selection for beginners. So let's talk about the yarn weight first. When it comes to the weight of the yarn and all the different ones we talked about, your weight number 4 or even your weight number 5 are the best yarns for you to use in starting out. It's easy to work with, but it's also not so thick that it's clumsy. When it's a finer weight yarn, it's very easy for it to become tangled, and until you're experienced with how to hold the yarn, how to hold the hook, and how to work them together, it's easier to have something that you can actually hang on to. Now let's talk about colors. Light, solid colors are the best. Your yellows, your pastel blues, your creams, those are really good. You want to avoid your navies, your blacks, your reds, even your variegated yarns. Again, a variegated yarn is a yarn that has different colors running all through it. This is variegated, this is variegated. This is one I brought in to show you a nice variegation of yarn. This cotton yarn is variegated. Because they're harder to see the stitches. So until you get used to holding it, working the hook, and making your stitches, you want something where it's easy to see as you go in and out of those stitches. All right, one other yarn that I want to show you really quick that we haven't really touched on, it's a type of yarn. This one happens to be a worsted weight yarn, so it's a medium 4, which it means it's an acrylic yarn, and it is a solid color of yarn, but it has these little colors that fleck through it, and that's where it gets its name. This would be considered a fleck yarn, and you can see those little colors running through it. That's a blue piece. Let's see. And if you look closely, you can see that those flecks are just little strands. So they actually fleck off of the yarn, and that one I just pulled off. So that's a fleck yarn. It just gives it kind of a decorative look. All right, we're going to go to our final topic of the day, and we've already touched on this a little bit. What does halo, roving, and pilling mean? Halo on yarn refers to this soft, fuzzy, fluffy fiber that radiates on the outward part of your yarn. The benefits of this is the fiber traps air, which provides like an extra warmth to the project or whatever you have made. The one thing about working with it is this fuzz can make it harder sometimes to see the stitches, and it is definitely challenging when it comes to having to rip it out. Ripping it out means frogging, and we'll talk about frogging at another Craft Table Talks. So you've learned today we've got a lot of other exciting topics that we'll be talking about. But again, this is what halo means. I had another yarn that had halo on it. This one has some halo on it. You can see that. So that is what halo is. Roving. I do have some roving yarn, but I could not put my hands on that ice cream roving yarn. But it's again where the fiber is kind of, it's like a soft, airy, bulky fiber. It's usually made from wool, and it's carded, not spun. And it's got like these roving strands, and where some parts of it are really thick and other parts of it are very thin, it has like this characteristic that's kind of known as like a floofy or untwisted texture. And it creates kind of like a rustic look in your projects. But the thing about it is it's really great for making something cozy. It's great for felting, if you've ever heard of that. The drawback with it is extremely sensitive and prone to breaking, pilling, shredding, which makes it very difficult to manage. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is pilling. I have a picture on the screen for you. I don't have any yarn at the current moment that is pilling, but I deal with it all the time. I'm working on a blanket right now currently using this yarn right here, and it pills a lot. And as you can see, there's a little bit of halo on that. That halo, when it connects, like if that halo were to connect these two fibers, and it creates a big mess, okay? That is because what happened is that halo has started to ball up, and it's created what they call peeling, and it sticks the yarn together, and it can create a hot mess. It's why a lot of times you get yarn bar sometimes, is that peeling catches it, and instead of pulling like it should, it brings out a whole bunch because you've got the resistance of that peeling. But the actual definition for it is it's a formation of small little tangled balls of fiber on the surface of the yarn, and it's caused by abrasion, friction, and just daily wear. So yes, I said daily wear. This yarn is not doing any daily wearing, but if I make something and I'm wearing it, and I've washed it and I've dried it, just over time, even just my sleeves rubbing across it, it can create a peeling effect to it. But it occurs when loose fibers rub together and mat, most commonly on soft, loosely spun or short staple yarns. And so yeah, it can create a mess. All right. Well, that wraps up all the knowledge that I feel that you need to get started. You now know about hooks, and you now know about yarn. And so next week, we are going to actually put a hook and some yarn together. So I encourage you to bring some yarn. I recommend, like we talked about, a 4-weight yarn, a 4-weight medium yarn. And I'm going to show you how to do what is called making a chain. Most projects start with some type of chain or what they call a magic ring. We will talk about magic rings on another Craft Table Talks. Next week, we're just going to show and talk about how to make a chain so we can start getting you started with making stitches. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you found this to be educational and informative and inspiring. And I look forward to seeing you at our next Craft Table Talks. Until our next Craft Table Talks, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, make your own joyful creations, and be the joy in everything you do. And I'll see you next week.